Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted that you're here for the session on how CORE can prepare you for your MBA. We're just going to give everyone another minute to join, and then we'll get started. Thanks so much. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today for the session on how CORE can prepare you for your MBA. My name is Rick Bullock. I'm on the product management team at HBS Online, and I'm so happy to be joined by two current Harvard Business School students, Katie Larson and Sathvik Sudhi-Reddy, and look forward to talking to them about their experience in CORE and the transition to the MBA program. Just want to say thank you, Katie and Sathvik, for joining us today. So we'll spend most of our time talking to Katie and Sathvik about their experience, but just to level set, I thought it would be helpful just to start to share an overview of the CORE program for those less familiar with it. And so this is an overview of the program. So the Credential of Readiness, or CORE program, is a business fundamentals program that consists of 3 courses: business analytics, economics for managers, and financial accounting. And the participants in the program take these 3 courses concurrently. And business analytics is essentially business statistics for decision making. Sorry, fundamental statistics for business decision making. So it starts at the very basics of descriptive statistics and covers summarizing data, sampling and estimation, hypothesis testing, and regression analysis. Economics for managers focuses on the economic foundations of business strategy. So it starts with key economic principles, supply and demand, markets, competition, and differentiation, and applies those to real-world business situations. And finally, financial accounting helps participants understand what's behind the numbers in financial statements. It starts with the building blocks of financial statements, covering journal entries and accounting principles, and teaches participants, how financial statements are constructed and how to analyze the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. And then the program also concludes with a brief introduction to forecasting and valuation. The program is entirely online, and it's delivered over 10 to 17 weeks. No matter what the duration of your cohort is, the program content is the same. We just offer the program at 2 different speeds. So if you take it over 10 weeks, you could expect to spend about 15 hours per week on the program, whereas the more extended 17-week offering, you could expect to spend about 8 hours per week on the program. Upon completion of the 3 courses, there's a single final exam in which is the culmination of the work, and passing all 3 courses in the final exam is required to earn the Credential of Readiness. I'm going to spend a minute just sharing a bit about the learning model behind CORE. Like all HBS Online offerings, we think there are 3 key tenets of the learning model. The program is active, so you won't encounter a long video lecture in the program. We have what we call the 3 to 5 minute rule, such that over the course of the programs, you'll encounter a new activity or exercise every 3 to 5 minutes to keep you engaged and learning. The program is also social, so you'll enroll in the program alongside a cohort of peers from around the world, and the program is interspersed with lots of opportunities to connect with and learn from your peers. And finally, the program is case-based. The case study method is the hallmark of Harvard Business School's educational model, and the faculty who have developed the core program, as well as all of our offerings, have applied it to our online course platform. I thought I'd take a few minutes just to walk through what the case method looks like in core. So a typical case will start with a video from what we call a case protagonist. So you'll hear firsthand from an executive or an entrepreneur about a challenge that's facing their organization. And then you might encounter what we call a cold call. So in our course platform, you'll have a question pop up and you'll have a minute or two to compose a response to a question about the situation facing the protagonist. So it might be, as the CEO of this company, what would you do in this situation? And then as the case unfolds, you'll have opportunity to discover insights and deepen your understanding through a series of interactive learning exercises. And then interspersed throughout the case, short faculty videos will help synthesize key lessons and drive home the learning. I want to share some program details about the Credential of Readiness program. As I mentioned, we offer the program at 2 speeds. So in March 2022, there'll be an extended core offering over 17 weeks that starts on March 29th, and you see the application deadline there. And then in May and June of this year, will be kind of 10-week offerings. So it's a more intense program over the summer. And the program fee is the same for all of these offerings at $2,250. And then when you registered for the webinar, a number of you submitted common questions. And so I wanted to address some of these about the process for enrolling in core. There's a brief application that's required for the program. It's very short, just asking about your background and a question about your interest in the program. Financial aid is available for current Pell Grant recipients, U.S. military personnel, and current graduate students at U.S.-based institutions. Upon successful completion of the courses and the final exam, you will be eligible to earn the Credential of Readiness certificate you can see here. And finally, although the Credential of Readiness program has been designed as a bundle of courses that work together to teach you the language of business, the individual courses, business analytics, economics for managers, and financial accounting, are also available individually. So that's another option if you're looking for a more kind of specialized course to help prepare for an MBA or otherwise help you advance your career. So now I wanted to turn over to Katie and Safik and learn about their career journeys to the MBA program and the impact of core, or kind of what their experiences was like during core. And I just wanted to start with, for each of you, just to reflect on when you first started to think about business school. Katie, let's start with you.
Sure, absolutely. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. For me personally, I actually started thinking about business school when I was still in my undergraduate experience. I went to the University of Southern California and I majored in engineering. And then I picked up a business minor when I realized I didn't want to be an engineer when I grew up. And one of my business professors actually introduced this concept of an MBA to me. I knew what it was largely, but he really tailored it down to me to say, hey, Katie, paired with your engineering background, this might be something you look into as a nice complement and as a way to kind of open doors for you in the future for what you want to do. And so from there, I applied to a few different grad programs and was accepted to HBS's deferred enrollment program. So there is a program for current undergrad seniors to apply to this deferred enrollment program where you're accepted as a college senior, and then you are able to work for a few years before coming back to get your MBA. So that's the program that I went through. After school, I was able to work at Boeing for a few years in a leadership development rotational program. And then after that, it was nice because I knew HBS was kind of on my radar in the future. And so I actually pivoted to a tech startup to get a wildly different experience from a large corporation in aerospace to a small firm within the tech sphere. And so that's what I did for the years before coming back to school. And as Rick mentioned, now I'm a first-year student here at HBS.
Thanks, Katie. And thank you for kind of sharing the explanation about the deferred admission program. For anyone who might be interested in that, it's called the 2+2 program. And you can find more information about that on the HBS main website. So Satvik, excuse me, let's turn over to you. So when did you first start thinking about business school?
Yeah, absolutely. So my early story is very similar to Katie's. I also studied engineering. I studied computer science in undergrad. Very quickly realized I didn't want to be coding for 40 hours a week. So I ended up doing HBS core. After my HBS core experience, ended up completing a minor in economics in undergrad. And then also went through the 2+2 program, so applied to 2+2 at the end of my senior year. And right after college, I worked in roles that integrated my passion for business with my passion for technology. So I worked at an education company on their emerging technology and innovation team. And then after that, I worked at a video game technology startup in a customer-facing role. So yeah, that's my story.
Excuse me. Awesome. Thank you so much. And I guess taking with you, Satvik. So what inspired you to enroll in core, and what was your kind of thinking about how you wanted to approach it at that point?
Sure. So when I realized that I wanted to get an MBA, and so my long-term goal is to one day be a CEO or a C-level executive at a video game company or a tech or entertainment company. So for that, I realized I did need to pick up the business skills that are necessary to achieve those kinds of high-level positions. And because I was a computer science major, I really didn't have any exposure to business, or I didn't even know if I liked it. So HBS Core was an easy way to kind of figure out, do I even like the content, and what kind of skills, what kind of knowledge is necessary to thrive in these kinds of functions.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And Katie, could you talk a bit about your journey kind of into core, which I think is a different point in your career?
Yes, absolutely. The net of it is I wish I had learned about core earlier, like Satvik had, and like a lot of you listening to this webinar have as well for being on the call. But I didn't hear about core until I was ready to start matriculating to HBS this year. So as part of the MBA program here at Harvard, they offer core as a way for you to start that transition from the professional world back to the academic world. And so it was actually a part of this plan of getting ready for school. And there are a couple coming in through the program that way. You're able to place out of some of the classes. If, for example, you have been doing accounting, you were an accountant for the last few years, you might place out of that class based on your previous knowledge. For me, though, kind of like Satvik was saying, because I have an engineering background, I took the diagnostic test. I placed out of a few of the classes. However, I chose to take all three of them because I really wanted to make sure that I was coming in with my best foot forward, coming in with as much knowledge as possible, knowing I was still going to learn so much more in school, but really just used it as prep for getting into the mental headspace of, okay, this is what academics looks like again after being out of it for so long. And just as a way to learn a lot. So again, I wish I had been exposed to it earlier, but it was still great prep for coming back to school.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. And I think it just mentioned that kind of the origin of the core content was a longstanding program at Harvard Business School to prepare students, for the MBA classroom that kind of evolved and was developed in a new form in core. But just want to mention that the core program is not a prerequisite for applying to the MBA program, and it's not formally part of the admissions process, but it's offered to incoming students to help get everybody on the same page of learning the language of business, so that everyone has kind of a consistent level of understanding of business fundamentals. So thinking about the core experience, the learning experience. What would you consider, Katie, some of the highlights of the experience for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it goes back to kind of what you were introing with, Rick, but the fact that the format is so varied. I think when I went into the classes, I was expecting them to be video lectures of me just sitting there, like trying to take notes about accounting and econ and all this stuff. When in fact, there were short answer questions that I had to, form my own thoughts for. And there were like short videos, but they related to businesses out, real businesses in the world, like selling tickets for a Red Sox game or like a small, little grocery store here in Harvard Square. And so there were those applications, there were graphical interpretations you had to make, and these forms of cold calls that happened throughout the system. And so that for me was super engaging, and it helped make the content feel very accessible and engaging. And the other thing I enjoyed was that the courses kind of built up as they went. So I came in never having, seen anything related to accounting. I was pretty nervous for that class, but the whole course started out with, here's the fundamentals. Here are different ways for you to kind of take this information in, for you to digest it, for different learning styles. And then as it built, I felt like I was really learning with the class, which was wonderful. So again, I found it surprisingly more engaging than I was expecting. It was a pleasant surprise, I thought, throughout the entire experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. And Satvik, what were your kind of highlights from the learning experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Echoing everything Katie said, I think just the variety of different aspects that you have to do in core, like the short answers, the videos, the pop quizzes, like everything just makes it really engaging. A lot of the elements are directly inspired from the HBS MBA case method. You get cold called, you interact with your peers, you give peer feedback. So I think for me, one of the highlights was really that social component and the fact that you're with a cohort going through this program. And then even after the core program is over, you're always part of the core community. So you always have this network with you, even after you graduate from core. So for example, I'm in the Harvard Business School online core Facebook group, and that group is very active, and I'm always seeing what people are up to and what questions people have. So yeah, it's been a great experience. One of the best online interactive education platforms I can think of.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. And just on the kind of social dimension of the core program, it comes in different forms. And as Satvik mentioned, there's a Facebook group for cohorts as they go through. There are opportunities on the course platform itself to engage with and learn from peers. And that includes sharing comments and reflections on your peers' comments about questions that come up in the program. There's a feature called Peer Help. So if you have a question in the course of any of the courses, you can pose it on that page and peers can answer it. And then after the program, there's a LinkedIn network and other ways to stay connected with your peers. As I mentioned before, the case method is really central to the Harvard Business School mode of teaching. And Satvik and Katie have been immersed in the case method in the MBA program. But I wonder if you could both reflect on what case-based learning is like in the context of core. Satvik, we start with you.
Yeah, for sure. So I think case-based learning is really one of the best ways to learn these subjects. There are a lot of different platforms that'll teach you these subjects in a lecture-based format where you might be less engaged, the material might be dry, but the case-based method really makes it not only engaging, but also it makes it feel very relevant to real-world situations. One of my favorite cases was in the financial accounting class. We had this case on Cardulos, which is a store here in Harvard Square. So we really learned about the different financial statements and what the components of a business from the perspective of that business owner, which made learning about these financial statements and financial concepts a lot more accessible when we learned about them through the frame of a story and a narrative and through the lens of a case protagonist.
Awesome. And Katie, how about you? Do any cases stand out from your core experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at least for the case-based learning experience in general, I thought something that was super value added for me, a reason why I was interested in applying to HBS and why I wanted to experience the case-based method, which you do get to experience through core, was that I wanted to challenge myself to form an opinion and come up with a cohesive, coherent, concise answer to a question that is posed, or just my view on a gray, subject. And so that was something I really wanted to work on myself to make sure I was showing up in a great way in future business meetings and in conversations in the future. Like, how do I make sure I'm adding value in a succinct way? And that was something that I was able to experience through the online core case-based learning platform. Satvik mentioned, like, there are cold calls. So you have 2 minutes and you have to type out an answer to a question that you don't get to see until the timer is running. So that kind of forced that within me, which I wanted that challenge, and it was a challenge, but a great one. And then in particular to a certain study or a course, I really enjoyed the business analytics class. So I took a statistics class when I was in undergrad, but it was a very engineering approach to statistics of, here's the textbook, here are the black and white answers, go through your problem sets, and here we go. And what I found with the business analytics course in particular through core was that, like Satvik was saying, you get to approach it from a different lens. You're getting to see it from, why does a business owner or a manager care about these things, and how do you use these tools to help you? So I kind of came into the class thinking, I've already taken statistics, I'm good, I'm going to breeze through this class. And it was challenging. Like, there was so much, it went into so much detail that we went into, for my engineering based class, and even further detail. So I still learned so much despite being kind of predisposed to that. So I really enjoyed that, loved the thoroughness, and again, loved seeing that the business manager approach to these subjects.
And Satvik, you had a pretty strong economics background from undergrad. I was wondering, what were your impressions of economics for managers after having already studied economics in undergrad?
Yeah, for sure. So even after studying economics in undergrad, I found a lot of value in the economics for managers course. Again, specifically through the case method. Like, economics in undergrad is very theoretical. You learn about supply and demand, you learn about externalities, but really in this course, you get to see those concepts applied in practice, and you really get to see how those concepts are thought about from the perspective of a CEO or a business owner. How do they think about pricing this good? Because you don't have all the information about willingness to pay. So this course really teaches you about, okay, how do you actually find the willingness to pay as a business owner? So it's a lot more practical than a traditional economics degree. And I really appreciated that.
Super. And as you kind of think about when you transitioned from into the MBA program, I guess what are the key, you've touched on some of these already, but what were the key benefits you saw from taking core as a preparation for the MBA classroom in any dimension? Katie, do you want to start?
Absolutely. So I think in preparing for the classroom, I knew that the transition from the professional world to the academic world was going to be a change, right? I personally am not great with change. So I was gearing up for okay, what is this going to look like? How am I going to adapt and adjust? So I thought that by going through core, it was really great to have those wheels start turning, to get back into that practice and really be getting into that mental space that is different, right? In the professional world, I got used to being a subject matter expert. I had been in my role for a few years. I really knew kind of what my day-to-day looked like. And then going back to a space where I'm in total learning mode and kind of starting from square one, having the content be all new, it was nice having core to prepare me for that coming into school. And then furthermore, another way that core really prepared me for my MBA was just getting exposure to, Satvik mentioned the social aspect of the core curriculum. And so getting different viewpoints from different people from all over the world really made it was interesting and fascinating and humbling to see, I really don't know the correct answer all of the time, most of the time, to be honest. But it was great hearing these other opinions, and also gave me the confidence coming into school of there is no right answer. I can have my own opinion based on my own experiences, which are going to be different from someone who was in investment banking or someone who worked in the nonprofit space or anything like that. and we can have a great discussion about it and kind of debate with each other in a really healthy way about these topics. So I think that starting out in core and seeing these different answers, initially I was like, oh, I'm wrong. Okay, this person had a great point. Like, oh, I'm so embarrassed that I put this answer. And then it was like, oh no, actually there are different ways to view these problems and different ways to come to conclusions. So I thought that was great just in helping me kind of find my voice. And I think if I would have taken core earlier while I was still working, that absolutely would have helped me like apply that into my day-to-day working world as well.
Awesome. And Safik?
Yeah, absolutely. So echo everything Katie said, and just adding, like, for me, what I found real value in core is just learning the language of business, right? Like when you're put in the MBA, you're put straight into the case method, and you're immediately reading cases and are expected to form these immediate opinions. So really what core did was not only teach me the language and the terminology of business and managers and CEOs, but also that it just gave me confidence that once after learning that language and terminology, that I could jump into the MBA classroom and start making pointed comments and developing opinions and speaking the language of the case protagonists that we were stepping into the shoes of. So for me, it was really about language and confidence.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, when participants in this session registered, they submitted a number of questions, and there were some common questions. And one of them was, can you be successful in core without a business background? And maybe I'll start by just talking a bit about kind of the participants who have gone through core so far. And the program was originally designed for undergraduate students from liberal arts or a STEM background who didn't have any background in business. And similar to the way in which Safik and Katie have talked about the value they got from the program, just to learn the language of business and to in part to prepare for a business school or prepare for a business career. And what we've seen, since the program was launched, is just widespread diversity in the profile of participants who have found value in the program in terms of their academic background, in terms of their age and experience, whether they're an individual contributor or a manager. So there are no prerequisites for the program. It doesn't assume any knowledge. And as I mentioned with respect to the business analytics, that course really starts at the very beginning of descriptive statistics, mean, median, mode, and really progresses through to regression analysis. And similarly for the other programs, it doesn't assume any prior understanding of financial statements or economics. And really the goal is to work through those fundamental concepts in a structured way to build that foundational understanding of language of business. But Safik and Katie, you both came from an engineering background. Any thoughts on kind of, what the program meant for you, without as much of a business background as going into it?
Yeah, so what I can say is Harvard Business School is really good at designing courses, right? So I had no business background going into core. I come from a CS background, and I felt very comfortable being onboarded onto the platform, doing my first modules, and HBS does a really good job with the pacing of the course too. So you never feel like you're too far behind, and you never feel like one module to the next is too steep of a learning curve. So the platform just does a good job of meeting everyone where they are. And it's also a self-paced course throughout the week. So each module, each course is split up into different modules, and each week, or depending on the program you take, is a different period of time. But within that period of time, you really get to spend as much time as you want on that material. So it's really like you take what you put in, and so yeah, it's a really great platform in that case.
Awesome. Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. Just adding on to that point, I think you can absolutely be successful because the platform is designed to be accessible to people from with different backgrounds, right? And so personally, I was terrified for the accounting class. I was terrified and excited because I knew that is one of like the core subjects that gets applied across business. And I knew I needed to learn it, but because I had never experienced it, I was like, oh, I am just going to get destroyed by this class, which was not the case at all. Like there was no need for me to be terrified whatsoever, because like Satvik was saying, it's you go at your own pace, but the content builds upon itself. And the other thing that I would say is, can you be successful without a business background? Yes. And we need voices that don't come from a business background. Like that's one of the massive values we find in the classroom at HBS and also through the core platform. Something that I loved was seeing the opinion of someone that had studied English, or somebody that worked in manufacturing, or somebody that worked, just varied opinions and viewpoints across the board really led to a richer discussion and led to better learning for everyone. So I don't think that core would be, you get the diversity of opinions that makes it a rich learning experience. So yes, we love when people do have business backgrounds, and we love when they don't, because it's accessible and, like I said, is creates value for everybody involved.
Thanks, Katie. Another common question was, how do employers and business schools perceive the core program? And just want to reiterate that the core program was originally designed to as a pre-MBA program, in part just for incoming MBA students at Harvard Business School. And there is an opportunity in the kind of the HBS MBA application to indicate your participation in core, but it's not a requirement for admission to the MBA program. But just wanted to highlight that it is a form of validated learning of your understanding of business fundamentals, and it's a rigorous program. I mentioned the weekly time commitment before, and it's a significant commitment. And one of the reasons why we offer it over 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 17 weeks is to give different opportunities for those in different career stages and with other responsibilities to be able to fit the program into their schedules. And then with respect to employers, the program is available to individuals for application, and a number of companies have also used it as a training program. So, I think there's a lot of validation in the quality of the program and the rigor of the program. So those are two kind of common questions that came through in the registration. Now I just wanted to turn it over to anyone in the audience. Please take advantage of the Q&A feature and submit a question. There's a question for Katie and Satvik about what was the most challenging part of core for them?
Okay, that is a great question. And I think for me, a piece of it was at the end of each module, and then at the end of each class, there are quizzes, like comprehension quizzes, to make sure that you're actually grasping the knowledge as you go. And for me, some of those, because I was juggling, taking core while still working in my full-time job, sometimes I would get to those module quizzes and be like, oh, I don't remember. Like, what did I learn? But the nice thing is, you have access to the content as you go through it. So you can go back and kind of reteach yourself to prepare for the quizzes. But I found that was the thing for me of it's not, to Rick's point, it is a rigorous course. So it's not just, okay, click through and get the credit. You're actually having to engage and ensure comprehension along the way. So in the end, I loved the quizzes because they forced me to pay attention and to get out what I needed to from the courses. But I think those for me were just a little more challenging than I was expecting, which was great. I love being pushed and challenged.
Yeah, I think for me, as Katie and Rick mentioned, this is it is a rigorous program, and you do learn a lot. So for me, I don't want to downplay the time commitment that you have to put in. It is like 120 to 150 hour program if you take all 3 courses. And so what that means is it can take, if it's a 10-week program, you would be spending 12 to 15 hours a week on this program. So making sure you have the time in the day to be able to dedicate. It would be difficult, for example, to do an entire module during the weekend or just in one day. It's possible, but it's not a pleasant experience. I did that for some of the modules. So make sure that you have the bandwidth to be able to dedicate enough time to this program, because it's a wonderful program and it's worth the time commitment.
Thanks so much to both of you. And another question came in. Can you share some tips to be successful in core? I mean, I think one is sort of time management. You both mentioned kind of the rigor of the program, but any other tips that come to mind?
For me, I think take notes along the way. Like I said, that'll help you as you go back and review. And it'll also help you make connections as you go. You know, you're clicking through pages on this online platform. So sometimes I would get to a subject where I was like, oh, how did I calculate this? I just did this before. And you can absolutely click back. But I found it would have been helpful if I had been taking notes along the way to just compare as I was going and keep building on that knowledge.
For me, I'd say like fully engage in all of the content, right? Like the courses are designed, you know, everything is by design, from the cold calls to the peer reviews to the short answers, the videos. So make sure to really engage in everything, and that's how you're going to get the most of your experience.
Fantastic. Thanks so much to both of you for your time and sharing your experience in core and your insights into preparation for the MBA program. And thanks so much to everyone for joining us and for your questions before and during the session. Hope this was helpful to give some insight into the Credential of Readiness program, and particularly the fit for as a kind of pre-MBA program. If you'd like some more information about the details of upcoming cohorts and the application process, I would encourage you to visit our website, or you can always submit a question there to get clarification if you need any. But thank you so much again, and hope you all have a great day. And Katie and Safik, thank you so much again. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks, everyone.